RedisCaching, a very important service provided by Azure and often used by web application for improving the performance. So we are going to first begin with understanding what is caching and then what is RedisCache. Eventually we will use RedisCache service for building a client application so that the data can be retrieved from cache and it is going to be faster. And then we are going to also look at how a expiration policy can be set so that the stale data, outdated data should be expired from memory. So let us first begin with understanding what is caching. See, nowadays we build all dynamic websites. Websites which are going to render different output for every request. But not necessarily all the pages of the website are going to render different output. For example, most of the time the home page content would remain same. The about us content would remain same. The contact us content would remain same. The trainer's profile, if it is a training website, would remain same. The details about the course would remain same. But then also we would want this site to be dynamic because it has to read data from database, compute the page and then render the output. And many times the output is also going to depend on the logged in user, the inputs provided by the user. So in all these cases, the overall site has to be dynamic, but most of the pages of this site can remain static, can probably though read data from database, but produce the same output every time. So why should we read data from database with every request? Why not read the data from the database or maybe get it from a remote web service and put it in memory of the web server and thereafter consume from the memory of the web server itself and render the output, or use it for computation in a page execution. So at least we would have saved a trip, maybe a trip to database or maybe a trip to web server is automatically going to improve the performance by reducing the overall time for execution of the page. So this is where caching is going to be very useful feature in dynamic web page or dynamic website development. So let us see first, caching is a mechanism for storing data close to where it is used. Yes, I would like to store the data in memory of the web server where my page is going to execute rather than every time fetching it from the database or remote web service. A mechanism that can speed up the system. Obviously, because the data is available locally, we do not have to make a trip to database. And if we do not have to make a trip to database, overall performance or speed of the system is going to be increased. And also decreases the load of the system. Obviously, when we are not making a lot of trips to the database load is going to reduce and it will automatically become scalable and provide access to multiple users. So these are the major reasons why we would do caching. Now what kind of data can be cached? We have three general units of data. It can be reference data, it can be activity data, or it can be resource data. Now what is reference data? It is the data which never changes or changes very slowly that we consider its rate of movement to be almost zero. The best example I can take for this is the set of countries which are saved in the countries table of a database. I would want to get the list of all countries and populate in a drop-down list on a web page. And this countries drop-down may appear in multiple pages, not just one. So why should we probably every time fetch it from the database? Why not we fetch it mostly from the memory only? Yes, and that is what we can do with the help of caching. We will read the data, put it in the cache, and thereafter the logic will be such that read it from the cache and put it in the drop down rather than making a trip to database. Of course, this kind of data is heavy read operation and it is shared between all the users. That's what we call it as reference data. Then we have got activity data. Now what is this activity data? Used to store data that is going on now, like the shopping cart content, which is going to be a read and write content and it is going to be user specific. So I will have something modifying. I'm adding items into the shopping cart. I'm deleting items into the shopping cart. I don't have to every time make a trip to the database and save it. We can keep all the shopping cart data in memory itself for a given client. And even if the client is changing pages, we can simply use that data from the cache itself. So that data also, yes, we can put it in memory cache. And then we can have resource data. Data that changes slowly like reference data but expensive to extract. It is changing pretty slowly, but to read that data it is going to be lot of time. Ideal example I can take is system settings. Let us say our applications would have a settings table where we are going to store certain information, and that is going to be global to the application. For example, the SMTP configuration details, or if I want to send a mail through my application, what should be the from address, or some templates which I would like to read for performing a task. So this kind of data, it is going to though change very slowly, but most of the requests would have the same input. So this also we can put it in the cache, memory of the memory cache, I would say. And obviously we would have to write additional logic such that if the memory cache modifies in the database, the memory cache is going to expire. If at all we are going to make changes to the data in the database settings table, if changes, the memory cache is going to expire. So like that we will have to write logic in this kind of cases. So when you consider caching, you have to be little careful. First, application should be able to withstand cached data unavailability. See, always our logic should be in such a way that if I try to read the data from the cache and if it is not there, I should have the else part where I can fetch it from the original source and put it in the cache. Without data in memory, if my application is crashing, it is a bad programming practice. Do not store important information only in cache. Yeah, it should be also persisted because cache is temporary. If you shut down, it's all gone. It's not permanent. So it is always recommended to ensure that anything which is important we also persist in database. At the same time, we use it from cache. Balance the number of objects versus the size of the object. We have to take care of this. How many cached objects are to be stored in memory and what should be the size of the object which is stored in memory? We have to balance it. Don't try to put everything into the cache and fill up the memory of the server. That is also going to be irritating because cache would expire very fast, and it is almost like not doing cache only because every request it will have to make a trip to the server. Use minimal but complete set of key for caching. Caching is most of the time done in the form of key value pairs. So don't try to have lots of keys with different values. Try to reuse the keys in multiple places if possible. So these are the recommendations which we have to consider at the time of caching. So now that we understand what is caching, let us understand what is Redis cache. And that too we are talking about specifically Azure Redis cache. Actually, Redis is an advanced key value store where keys can be of type string. Rather, keys can contain data which can be of type strings, hash tables, lists, dictionaries, sorted lists. Redis also supports a set of atomic operations on these data types. That's the beauty of it. Most of the caching server do not support any operations on the cached data. In memory, only string and value pairs will be saved and that's it. But Redis allows us to perform atomic operations. For example, addition of two numbers can be done when they are in cache. That is possible here. Azure Redis cache uses authentication and also supports SSL connection to Redis. Again, this is how Redis cache is different from rest of the caching servers. Actually, even .NET has caching facility. The core .NET API has caching facility, but it does not support authentication nor it provides us any SSL connection. Redis cache is based on popular open source Redis cache. So actually Redis cache is the open source. The extension of that is what Azure Redis cache is. It gives you access to secure, dedicated Redis cache managed by Microsoft and accessible from any application within Azure. So Azure Redis Cache is a service built in Azure platform, and we can use that in any of the applications which we are hosting in Azure. And not only that, even if you want to build a client and use the Redis Cache, you can do that. The client can be a mobile application or can be a desktop or laptop application which is completely running outside the Azure platform. Yes, it is also possible to do that. Azure Redis Cache is easy to use. Just provision a cache using Microsoft Azure portal and call into its endpoint using any client that supports Redis. That's it. We have to just create a Redis cache service in the portal, one-time job, and we write a client in any language which is going to support the Redis API. So like usually we have got SDK for everything. Here also we are going to have Redis cache SDK. Is easy to manage. You can also easily monitor the health and performance of your cache through portal. Like all other services, monitoring features are there where the performance can be measured in the portal. You can also have Microsoft manage replication of the cache for you, helping increase the availability of your cache across cache data across cache failures. So yes, if required, you can replicate this. You can put it in multiple locations. So even if the cache data fails in one place, you can still make it available through another location. Redis offers many features beyond the traditional key value pair, including manipulating existing entries with atomic operation, such as we can append to the string, which is already there in the Redis cache in memory. Existing value of a key can be appended with new string. We can increment or decrement a value. We can add a new item to the already existing list in memory. Computing results or intersections or unions is possible. You can also work with the sorted sets. So these are the beautiful additional features which we have in Redis cache, which otherwise we do not find in the traditional key value caching mechanism. Now, Redis cache is available with following tiers. We have got basic tier, standard tier, premium tier. Basic is single node, multiple sizes, ideal for development and test and non-critical workloads. So there is no SLA here, there is no service level agreement. You can always find that the Redis cache has expired and the data is not available. That chance is there. Whereas in standard, we have got replication in two primary and secondary configuration managed by Microsoft, and thus because of this replication it has better SLA, high availability SLA, service level agreement. Then we have a new premium tier here. What is this? The new premium tier includes high availability SLA and all standard tier features and more, such as better performance over basic and standard tier cache, bigger workloads, disaster recovery and enhanced security. All these are extra features which we have in premium and we don't find them in basic and standard. Also we have Redis persistence, which allows you to persist data stored in the cache. Whatever is there, you can make it persistent actually. You can also take snapshot and back up the data which you can load in case of the failure. So we can actually to an extent use Redis cache like a database here. We can say that. Redis cluster allows you to create cache larger than 53 GB. That is pretty large. 53 GB of data we can put in the cache, which is not possible in case of the standard and premium tiers. And it can be shared across multiple nodes. Azure Virtual Network provides enhanced security. VNet, if you are creating, you can have enhanced security and isolation by restricting access to your cache to only those clients within the specified Azure Virtual Network. You can restrict it. You can say that only those virtual machines or only those machines which are running in this VNet can have access to this cache, others should not have access. Like that you can control it. So these are the premium features which we have. So overall, Redis Cache I would say is an excellent service for caching and the best option for keeping the data in memory so that it can be consumed faster for making a HTML page and rendering output. Thank you.